Welcome to a fine gaming experience, everyone. Bricks here with the usual co-host.
Hey there, I am extremely excited for this episode because we're going to be taking on one of the most obnoxious monsters in the game.
This is hands down my least favorite creature in the entire game. Just enjoying those beats, you know.
I don't actually think there's any percussion. Does harp count as percussion? No, it's a string. It's just a string.
Yep. Look how much those cats are enjoying playing it, too. Like, they're just mellowed out to this tune, man.
So, wait a minute. What's that other cat doing? Clearly the one on the right is playing the harp. Only, like, the first quarter of it?
Well, if you notice, their arms are not long enough to actually play all the strings, so they have to have more than one person.
But the other one was just standing there, motioning aggressively towards the other.
That's how you play a harp, you know.
There's some sort of palico hierarchy that we aren't aware of. We need to figure out.
It's the size of their tail.
Oh, is it? It's tail size?
Yep.
Okay.
It's the size of the tail that matters.
Partner, that was a Kushala Daora. Didn't expect to see one in the New World too.
Now, a little interesting thing, we're going kind of backwards here. Kushala is really talked about as sort of the first of the new elders you're supposed to engage, but also the most annoying, so the one that we leave till last. Mainly because Kushala's main gimmick is only really done by Kushala itself, and there's gear and armor that you can make to stop it, but most of that gear you literally get from fighting Kushala. So, not a really fun fight, and the problem is, well, you'll see that there's a lot of issues with aerial combat in this fight.
And one thing too, like, I will cheese flash pods a little bit here, I'll say it up front. But the big problem with Kushala is that they are a wind dragon. And wind resistance is very rare to get, and it's only tier 3 gems that have that. I have one tier 3 gem right now.
Now, this is actually a really smart weapon choice here because of the poison element on here. Kushala, because they fly around a lot, really difficult to get a lot of damage on them. Poison is a great way to get damage on a lot of monsters that have phases where they just fly. Another big thing about Kushala that not a lot of people know is Kushala's damage is ridiculously high and has good combos, but they don't usually stay on the ground that often, so they're actually a lot more of a fun fight if they do stay on the ground, kind of like fighting any of the wyverns like your Rathian or Rathalos, but with those charge attacks actually being impactful more than just annoying.
There's a lot of windows there you can't attack Kushala, though.
Kushala's very weak to KO, so those of you out there who use a weapon that does lots of KO damage, like your hunting horns or your hammers, you'd have a really good time fighting them. Actually, one of the best ways to fight Kushala is sword and shield. The first time I fought Kushala, I used a sword and shield build and found it a very easy fight, and when I'd switched out to greatsword, I basically spent most of the fight just waiting for an opportunity that never came. So it's good to have a fast weapon or something that can attack aggressively in bursts, and that's kind of Gunlance's big thing.
Quite literally, it has a burst attack.
Finger guns.
Okay, got it.
Now, this got one new move with Iceborne, and it's a weird one, but interesting.
We should get going too.
You get ammo and just smash it into your gun. And you'll get a new form of Wyvern Blast, basically, that will leave a piece of mechanism on the opponent. And anytime you shoot it or explode it, there's lots of different ways to trigger it outside normal attacks, and it will just do extra damage for you.
The nice thing about it is I believe it's typed on the type of ammunition that you're using. So if you pack in slinger ammo that does like a little bit of fire damage, it'll add that in. If you're using piercing pods, I think it might hit multiple parts. I'm not quite sure on that, but I do know that, like, if you can get yourself some bomb pods, it's a nice devastating combination. Because that is Gunlance's jam, is doing that extreme amount of explosive.
I do like this intro, but it's not exactly how the dragon fights.
I like how it plinked off your armor, but like our hunter is so strong that her muscles literally shattered pieces of like, crystal. She just flexes her thigh and it just goes plink.
It's that whole, like, bikini armor protects you more than you really know.
I will say one thing that's really great about Monster Hunter is they do offer those choices. Sometimes you want your female characters to look attractive. I know a lot of women who are like, yeah, okay, bikini armor is not functional, but some of it's really cool and it looks good. So they give you options between bikini armor and full plate, and it's not just one choice. And a lot of the sets for women actually look really good. So I'm quite pleased with that. My wife originally played this game. She doesn't play it as much anymore, and she actually really loved the options on armor. Uh-oh, here's the big combo. Boom, look at that damage.
Now, that's what I don't like, is your new attack requires setup to do. You can't just immediately go into that spear. So anything that moves around even a little bit, you might run into a bit of trouble.
Now, the aerial shots that he's firing off here are actually pretty bad. You don't really want to use those, but on Kushala, they're super awesome because of those wings. You want to cripple Kushala's wings. That's an important part of this fight. The reason I like Sword and Shield is because you can do shield bashes with it, and it has actually an aerial dive you can do. Wow, he's just standing in that Molotov.
Yep. Now, that's one of the new things we got here, is the Molotov, and with Iceborne, we can go past rank 10 on it. And once you go past rank 10 with those Molotovs, you get the Meowcano, where he just sits there holding a big firework, and it'll constantly do damage.
It actually works a lot like the explosive lava blasts that you can find in the Elder Recess.
There I am, smashing my ammo into it again.
Now, the gun lance is very much a setup weapon. You find your opportunities and go for it. So rather than go, hey, if you're a lance user, try out the gun lance, I feel they're very different weapons. Lance is consistent attacking. Not a lot of big hits, just constant attack, 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 attack. It plays more like Sword and Shield does as far as combat. Whereas the gun lance, to me, feels more like a greatsword. You gotta find your openings and use them.
That's annoying that didn't connect there.
It should have.
Yep.
But it's a very short-range little spear.
Now, that's my problem with this weapon, is you do get some nice maneuverable hops, and you can block with it and use it as a defensive weapon. But you have to constantly be reloading and being in just the right position. And it takes so long to pull out your weapon and set it up or put it away every time. So if you're fighting anything quick, you're going to be spending a lot of time just poorly maneuvering.
I'd love to hear from people who are Gunlance mains who have played with this weapon and just know its versatility. I've seen people play with the Gunlance at top levels of skill, and it's really awesome. Like, for the amount of damage it can put out, it's a crazy strong weapon. Plus, it's actually really great against a lot of creatures that have extremely high armor, because those shots all pierce right through. They do a set amount of damage when you fire a shot.
The only thing I don't like is it's trying to be a ranged weapon and a melee weapon and a defensive weapon, and it's doing none of them very well. It tries to be a jack of all trade, and it's certainly a master of none, I'll say.
I think the big thing about, much like my bow set that I've been using currently, I think there comes a point when you're playing Gunlance where you have to make a decision whether you're going to go for those big combos or little piecemeal shots, and you have to build your armor set to kind of influence which one of those different abilities you focus on. From what I understand, the shield with the Gunlance is a nice little extra accessory, but it's kind of like the shield with the charge blade, which is not as useful as a shield by itself, but when used with other attacks can be kind of handy. It's a nice thing to have. Oh, you gently jam that in his ribs.
And you can see it just sticking out his side there, so any shots and blasts will now trigger that, including my Wyvern Blast, which does a nice big blast of damage. Right there, you can see the little ticks afterward. And that lasts a long time.
You see those tornadoes around there? Those things, if you're caught in the middle of one of those, you basically can't move, you're taking damage, and he can keep shooting those. So the reason he's such an annoying monster is he'll keep attacking and throwing those tornadoes around, and you basically have to kind of lure him out of those. He'll create a few in the air and then fly up in the air. You'll flash pod him and he'll fall into one and you can't do anything about it. He's just laying there and there's nothing you can do to damage him.
He's also really bad for creating tornadoes in areas you want to make use out of. He will just limit what parts of the arena you can actually fight in, and even sometimes just trying to get up close to melee. He'll do a little wind breath in front of you. Sometimes he'll have the tornado armor that will just knock you back a little bit. It's very annoying.
And it's not all rough stuff with Kushala. Kushala has some pretty cool moves. The biggest problem with Kushala is always the final phase, where it's just tornado after tornado after tornado, and you're just trying to... I strongly recommend a nice, powerful weapon with a big last hit and some barrels left at their head when they're asleep. That's the best way to deal with it. Excessive amounts of flash pods also help.
Yes, and this is one of those times where making more flash pods is vital.
And we've talked about this technique before, but I'm going to mention it again. Yeah, look how easy he is to KO. Like, he actually has very, very high weakness to KO damage.
I want to say Kushala also has some of the lowest hit points out of all the Elder Dragons.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Wait for the next chance. Stupidity is not something I tolerate.
But what I was talking about before is the flash pods and flash flies. You can carry only 3 flash pods with you. That is the limit of flash pods you can carry. You'd have to go back to camp to reset that and refill yourself from your tent. However, you can carry up to 10 flash bugs with you. The only ingredient for making a flash pod is a flash bug. So you can fill your inventory with 10 flash bugs and set up a special crafting recipe on your hotbar to make flash pods. So at that point, you end up having 13 flash pods. Now, this is not something I recommend anybody get very used to, because most of the monsters, flying monsters you'll fight in Iceborne, are actually pretty much immune to more than 1 or 2 flash pods. They're actually better off to kind of spook them, give you a little opening window, but they will not knock monsters out of the sky. And some monsters even end up developing techniques against flash pods. There's a very special monster we're going to fight not too far away. That, ooh, that right there was technically a death.
Not technically, I didn't get carded.
Didn't get carded, yep.
It's not going on the list, but that's the closest I come in this fight here.
That's guts. And remember what I said, Kushala is actually pretty powerful from an attacking standpoint on the ground. Those wind blasts, the charges, actually a really fun fight. I'd love to see a revision of Kushala that's more of like ground-based.
Sadly, Kushala isn't one that has any variants we'll run into later, but for the most part, Kushala is very much like fighting a regular dragon.
Like, that attack right there just looks so cool. And I absolutely love the armored carapace. It's got a really heavily armored body. So it's kind of like this steel and wind, awesome looking dragon, but just...
If you look really close, it's got a very cool chrome-like look to it and almost shimmers at parts.
I'd say the biggest problem is just the difficulty of engaging this monster. You're not really fighting the monster, you're fighting the environment and the monster, and that can be a bit more of a pain.
And a lot of the attacks, too, won't even do a lot of damage. They'll just stun you, or right here, I flashed in a very poor spot, and now I can't reach the monster at all, even with my shots.
Now, that's because this specific gun lance here probably doesn't have the long-range shot, but you actually can get long-range gun lances you can actually charge the shots up on and fire them at a distance, and they do give you a decent ranged attack that you can do when you can't get to a monster.
Right there was really nice. You got to see the Wyvern Blast trigger on the side from the huge amount of damage, and did an extra 75.
Mm-hmm. Another thing about this weapon, which I do want to discuss, is the sharpness. Highly recommended you take speed sharpening or some other skills for your sharpness, because man, it wears its sharpness down like crazy when you start blasting with it. The term actually is shelling, by the way. Shelling with the lance.
Oof.
Oh,
I thought he was going to jump up. But this is part of 2 where we were talking about respecting Elder Dragons. And this is certainly not my best or favorite weapon, and it shows.
There are actually some techniques you can do where you can automatically reload your weapon right after a combo, and you can just keep attacking. But as you can see, even without like a huge amount of skill in the weapon, he's not a terribly hard fight. And oh, I didn't think you'd get that flash off, but you did.
And that's another nice thing to do to dragons, especially the elders. If they're trying to go back to their nest and just want to fly away, well, shoot them in the air. Flash them out, get some extra damage in. And yeah, that's part of the whole part of what I was talking about, where the weapon tries to do so much. And adding just the brutal levels of losing sharpness on top of everything else does not help. I do find the new attachment helps push it towards more of a heavy damage weapon, but it really feels like you have to pick and choose your moments a lot.
Well, to be honest, when I started Iceborne using the bow, I found that it was an extremely weak weapon, and I did not have a gear set that worked well for it. I did not have the right gems for it, and a lot of people online are like, oh, if you're doing bow, you need this and this and this, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of stuff to make something work when I could just pick up a greatsword and just go into a fight and win. And there are some weapons like that. They require a certain level of dedication both to the gameplay and to your armor sets. And of course, I say greatsword doesn't need that, but people who have the top greatsword clears in the world, who are just absolutely dominating, they have a set for it. They are building to that.
I dislike this little ledge here. There's only certain parts you can actually climb up, otherwise you just do your little running jump off, and it's very hard to tell which parts you can actually climb. Let's wake him up in style.
Good morning. And an immediate knockout, too.
And then, boom!
Awesome.
Not a bad way to end it.
That was seriously impressive.
I mean, it was pretty impressive.
And this area's neat too. You don't get to see it too much up here, but it's got almost a bowl with a little ledge in the center where you'll be fighting, and there's lots of areas you can wedge beetle around, lots of stuff you can pick up here too.
Gunlance was actually the first weapon I ever played in a Monster Hunter game. And I tried my best to make it work. I think it was one back for the... It was the DS, actually. It was one of the original DS games. And I had gone back before that and played the Lance in, I think, the one for PS2 that I had for a while. But I could never get the hang of it. And I always thought maybe it's me. Maybe I just don't get it. So I'd love to hear from Lance mates out there. I'd love to hear from anybody who's going to watch the video and tell us, hey, this is what you're missing out on Gunlance. Because it's a powerful weapon, but it just feels like maybe it's not coming together for either of us.
Yeah. Admittedly, you probably won't see it too much more throughout the LP. I dislike it that much, and I've already shown off all the little doodads it has with Iceborne, so...
Goodbye, Gunlance.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I still don't know how Horn is the least favorite compared to that one, but when we get to Horn, you can see how much that one has improved.
Horn is awesome. I actually am very excited because I don't know what day. I think it's the 27th, I want to say, or 26th.
Fine work.
We have the release of Monster Hunter Rise, and I am going to be a Hunting Horn main, probably with about 50% of the population for at least the first 2 weeks, because I absolutely love the way they've changed it. They have made it so user-friendly. And that's one thing about World. A lot of people who came from earlier games are like, wow, they made a lot of stuff user-friendly, but then other players who hadn't played Monster Hunter before came in and go, wow, all this stuff is super easy to understand, but like, why is Hunting Horn so stupidly hard to realize? Like, how do I use this? How do I pay attention to this and hit call? I don't get it. I'm not going to pick that. So a lot of the reason Hunting Horn isn't that popular a weapon is not because it isn't powerful, it's because it's complex. And a lot of people don't want to spend the time investing in it, learning new songs when you upgrade to a different weapon. So I think that's the big part with it, but it's strong. It is really strong.
And here he was talking about how it was pretty much the first quest we're supposed to take, and why is everything freaking out, and explaining everything he should have the first time we beat up an Elder Dragon. Even over here, yeah, we're going to give you an extra quest. Every Elder Dragon you beat here will give you an extra foodie quest just to get some more ingredients.
Also to break up the monotony of fighting ridiculous things you may not be able to clear in your first fight. We also got a blue quest over there.
That's the Devil Ho one we've had for a bit there.
Unfortunately, I had to wait on that for a little while.
We'll be seeing him before too long, though. We are getting near the end, as we've said.
Well, we're getting near the end of the main game. And Monster Hunter continues quite a bit. I think there's probably about 50% more content after the main game. And Iceborne managed to probably squeeze in another 60 or 70% after the main game. This is a phenomenal value for a video game. If you can pick up Monster Hunter and Iceborne and you like the combat, this will take you possibly a year or two to get through everything. If you're playing, regular and have a decent life. Hey, if you can just play the game nonstop, it's still going to take you months.
We've been playing together for quite a long time, and we still have lots to do.
We never log on the game and go, what do we want to do today? I don't know. It's always, what do we want to do today? And we have dozens of options. Yeah. Yes, we do. And as good as we are, we still get trashed a lot.
Yeah. And speaking of lists, I've almost finished off the armor list we have. So very soon it'll just be a few more, but...
I love this. It's such a cool item.
And very handy, too. It looks very simple, but the skills on this one are just handy for the time you get it. Plus, it's got a lot of defense.
Yeah, it's a really cool-looking piece of gear, and it has one of the most useful abilities in the game, which is Weakness Exploit. And Weakness Exploit's really good for any of those affinity builds. You want to do crits and whatnot. It's a very, very handy thing to have. It used to be apparently very much stronger, but has lost a little bit of impact with Iceborne.
And a 3-gem slot on it, too, is really handy.
I love the look of this set.
I love the one for the male. As we're about to see, the female is a bit more goofy. The pumpkin dress.
It's certainly a fashion statement. I would love to see cross armor. So have allow the male sets on female characters, but the bodies are built differently, they move differently. There's a lot of actual work they put into the differences between male and female characters as far as graphics are concerned.
That would be a nice option down the line, though.
It's actually got some decent skills for a harvesting set. You're out there maybe helping out buddies.
It's not a great mix, though, just like this one. This one is a very odd mix of skills, but you kind of got to decide if you really want to mix and match pieces out of it, or just like the look.
I'll actually say a lot of the event sets in the original Monster Hunter are not great. Event weapons, almost always awesome. But the event sets are just not that useful. That flips its head in Iceborne. You'll actually have some sets that can get skills you couldn't even find if you can get the event early enough. And like there was the last boss we were fighting. We'll call it the last boss. The second last boss in Iceborne had a really good set and that I wanted to build, and almost immediately after I got an upgraded version of that very set from just doing an event quest or two. The Gala Suit's not bad. This is actually one of the nicer sets, especially because of the skill on it.
If you recall, I was using this for the low rank, and this is the high rank version, which is just straight up a better version, but it's got the same good luck skill there, which is really, really good if you want a basic farming set.
And I absolutely love exactly what I was saying. Hey, let's take this set, and rather than take the girl and give her a ball gown or something like that, let's put her in a suit. And it's a nicely cut suit. It looks really good on the character. And honestly, I think it's one of my favorite just glamour sets in the game. And you can get glamour tickets for this one, I'm pretty sure.
Yep, you can get a layered armor of this one. And if nothing else, it's sparkly. It's unique that way. You don't have many white and gold armor sets, and that's a pretty sharp mix.
The Kushala stuff.
I love the male set. The male set has a really cool look to it, especially the alpha. And then you take off the mask.
Which, I mean, nothing against his face, but that mask is really cool. Gives it a very Stone Guardian kind of look. Really weird stats on it. Extremely high ice defense. So it's pretty good against some of the fights that you would do early on in Iceborne, though you'll probably be in quite a bit better sets by then. You can notice the 3rd level set there for 3 set pieces.
Yep. I don't actually show it off, but it just completely nullifies all wind damage, which is really good in some ways. That's 5 ranks of a level 3 jewel. Right there you're getting for free. But so few monsters use it, and it's more of an annoyance than something else you might want immunity to.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're farming Kushala, build the set. Otherwise,
Again, the ice defense is nice. It would be much, much better if we had a much upgraded version of the set we could use in Iceborne. But most of the monsters in the main game don't use ice, so it really kind of falls flat.
And it's so much work to build it up too. Like, you have to farm Kushala a bunch to build the set to farm Kushala more.
Yeah.
Which isn't worth it. There's a couple weapons you might really, really want, but even then the Kushala weapons are an interesting mix.
I actually think that's a pretty cool looking set of armor.
I really like it. The weapon's not the best, but the armor itself is pretty cool. If nothing else, it's got the little cat paw pendant.
That feels Stargate. Do you know what I mean? It feels like something from Stargate.
Mm-hmm. I believe actually some of the higher ranks of armor will very much give you a Stargate vibe. We won't see those for a very long time, though.
Mm-hmm.
But we got one more Elder Dragon to take down here.
Oh, and my absolute favorite Elder Dragon. There is one I already said was my favorite, and this is the competition for it, but I had to think about it. I think this is my absolute actual fave.
I'm a little disappointed the birds don't seem hungry here, but, you know, the frogs haven't eaten in a bit, so maybe they'll be interested in getting some food.
Maybe the birds are eating your fish or something like that. You should go check it out.
They're merged into one uber toad.
Oh,
and
no.
This is one actually funny thing. If you pet the frogs, what do you think happens?
They explode?
Yep, just blew up my bedroom.
Why do you have these things living in your room? They don't like being pet. Why do you have a pet that does not want to be pet? It's literally in the word.
I'll answer that one next time. So I hope you join me for that, and take care all.